This video is only part of an unpaid, unbiased, in-depth review from an average rider's perspective, so check out the rest in the link below at thegoodride.com. If you want real advice, fill out the Me Harmony profile in the link below so I can help you properly. And if this video helps, please consider donating or buying through our links. Thanks for watching. Welcome to The Good Ride. I'm James Beastie, and it's time to get another stamp on my passport. This is the K2 Passport. Bad joke. Next to it is the instrument and the manifest. I'll be primarily talking about the passport, and these two are primarily here to look pretty, but there are some occasional references. I rode these with Union Atlas and Burton Kendos. Got this passport in a wide variety of conditions, everything from groomers to a little bit of powder, and got a pretty good sampling snow-wise. Unfortunately, most of the riding footage that I have for this came out super shaky. No matter what I tried to do in post to fix it, didn't work. So it's not ready for prime time, and I'm gonna have to keep it out of the review. As you can see by the sample footage while I'm talking about this, it really isn't good to be in this video, but I did have some great conditions and I wish I could have shared them with you and shown you what they were like. Luckily, you're not here to see me ride. You're just here to hear me talk about how it rides. So hope this review still helps, and sorry I couldn't share all the good conditions I had this board in. To give you a short summary, the Passport is kind of like a little bit more of a tapered broadcast. It pretty much has its own unique feel to it. It's got a little bit of that rubbery, damp personality that a lot of K2 boards have, other than, let's say, like the Alchemist and Excavator and Niseko Pleasures. It has this really versatile, directional all-mountain feel that goes a little more directional than the manifest and more directional than the broadcast, but is not quite as wide and directional as the instrument. So it works really well for those who don't ride switch a ton but still want to be able to do it and want more of that centered, less tapered feel, but still want it to perform pretty well when they get some powder and they set it all the way back. It turns really well. It's a fun all-around board. Now, when it comes to sizing, this 57 felt really good. I think I could easily go 160, but it handled my 185 pounds pretty well and was perfect for my size 9 boots. So when it comes to shape and camber profile and overall on snow feel, the shape of this is tapered and directional. It's kind of like a lot of tapered directional freeride boards, but it has a little bit of that manifest, non-tapered double ender kind of feel to it that I really liked. It definitely needed a little more back foot weight, but it didn't scream for it, and I think a lot of people will like that. And when it came to camber profile, you have a hybrid camber with a lifted tip and tail, but there's a little more rocker in the nose than there is the tail. So it's kind of like a little bit of a setback hybrid camber, and it feels really forgiving underfoot, but still has some camber feel. It tracks really well, it one-foots really well, and it's very easy one-footing and flat basing. When you get off your game, you can skid a turn and it's not gonna punish you. So very good for beginner intermediates all the way up to experts who just want a forgiving ride. Now, when it comes to edge hold, I thought the edge hold was good. All of these did a good job edge hold wise. They can hang in hard snow, but they're not icy snow specialists by any means. Now let's talk flex here. You can see there's kind of a medium stiff flex to it. It's pretty consistent throughout the board. I don't feel much of a softer flex in the nose, and it's pretty stiff in the tail too. I would say overall the flex is pretty consistent, and you can see there's a good, it feels really rubbery, and you think it's not going to pop back, but it really does. Now, if you're considering this or the instrument, you can see the instrument has a very similar flex too. And then if you're thinking you don't want to go as directional, you can see Another very similar flex. Maybe a touch softer than both these guys, but very close. Overall, very similar. And I found the Passport was easy to butter. You could play around on the nose and tail. So on snow, I think that little bit of early rise helps gives you a little bit of extra leverage, so you can butter this medium stiff flex a lot easier than you would think by looking at how I flexed it under these pretty lights. Now, when it comes to pop, I didn't feel like it was a super poppy board, but again, it had really good spring and it popped way better than I thought for how it feels underfoot. It feels very damp and very rubbery, but then when you pop it, it actually does have some energy and some pop. So I thought it was kind of cool. Lots of people have different preferences when it comes to flex personality. Some like a lighter, poppier board, and if you do, you're not gonna like this. But if you like that medium, damp kind of ride that just performs well in all conditions, this is great. And in speaking of uneven snow, hard micro bumpy snow, no problem. All these boards. Just midday messy snow, emerging moguls, no problem. You can't power over it at super high speeds, but you can slow down and this board will not buck and bounce you around that much if you size it up correctly. Now, when it comes to speed and base glide, I felt the base glide was good, but not amazing, and it was well waxed. Thanks, Justin. It kept its speed pretty well. It's definitely upper middle, but definitely not way up there. But I don't think it'll have low lows, but it won't have ever have the highest of highs, but it'll keep its speed and glide really well. So nothing to really worry about there. If you want to point it, I felt like this was pretty damp. I thought it did a really good job pointing it, and it's not a bomber, but overall, it did a good job. And then when it comes to turning and carving, this turning experience is fun. It's pretty quick edge to edge. I really liked it. I felt like if I got into some tight spots or a tight tree line and I really needed the board to react quickly to kind of slalom through things, this would do an excellent job. Definitely faster than the Instrument and about the same as the Manifest, even though they're kind of very different boards, but just in case you're considering one of these three. When you get it over on edge, I thought it had a pretty satisfying carve. There isn't a huge amount of camber, but you feel more of that camber than you would think for how high it is off the snow, and there's good energy out of the turn. Again, it has that damp, rubbery feel, and just like an ollie, you think it's not really going to give you a lot of energy out of a turn, but it gives you much more than you would think, and I really liked it. So when it comes to powder, I got it in a decent amount of powder, not amazing, but pretty fun. And I gotta say, this Passport, when set all the way back, the personality changes a little bit to something you really want, and that's a more turny, set back, surfy feel. It's no Instrument. You can see that's much more set back and directional, but definitely a lot more than the Manifest. The Instrument is a good bit more set back, but it has that same stance width. That's like obviously the winner if you're gonna see a lot more powder, but this Passport was really fun, and I think it can handle a decent amount of powder. It's not gonna excel in the deep like the Niseko Pleasures or the Excavator, but it's gonna be pretty fun. Or even the Instrument, which I got in some pretty good powder, and that floated really well. I think if you like to ride switch, you probably want to use the Manifest because that's much better centered in powder. And speaking of switch, it's doable, but you want the Manifest for that better than the Instrument. The Passport's where you occasionally ride switch and you want it to be functional, then this can work. I had a good time riding switch, and it's not an exceptionally great park board because it is tapered and directional, but this would be a fun pipe board for me. It wasn't bad approaching and landing on those little micro jumps I hit around the mountain. I'm not really gonna go throw it in the park, but you could with this based on its flex and its camber profile and its not so tapered directional feel. So overall, I had a good time with the Passport, and I think it's a pretty versatile board. I think it's pretty recommendable and could work for a wide variety of riders.